Hey there, kiddos. Here we go into Chapter 5, which are states of consciousness. See, normally, if we were in the classroom, I would get all excited because I would say, woohoo, we're doing drugs today. But being as this is a YouTube video, probably not the best thing to say. So, what we're going to say is we're going to talk about consciousness or the lack thereof. All right, so a couple of levels of a couple of levels of awareness. First off, you've got the lower level of consciousness, which helps with your automatic processes. The things like breathing, blinking, things that you don't need to be aware of that you're doing. Your body just kind of does it on its own. Because automatic processes require very little attention or very little conscious effort, and it does not interfere with any other ongoing activities, despite the fact that I can't seem to walk down the stairs backwards. Some of us are a little smarter than others, right? So another lower level of consciousness is what we call daydreaming, or just wandering thoughts. You're sitting there. If we were in the classroom, or maybe even right now as you guys are watching this, you're thinking about, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, and then you start thinking about what I would do if I weren't here, and wandering thoughts, and fantasy, imagination, ruminating, just kind of, just staring off into the day, and then it doesn't necessarily interfere with what you're doing, because most of the time you can daydream and fantasize or whatever while you're doing something else, driving. We can daydream while we're driving, which is why sometimes we're like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't remember driving this far, but obviously I'm here and I didn't get in a wreck, so something must be working, right? So kind of the same thing. Or when we're or sometimes it can be useful in that when our minds wander, we're like, oh, forgot about that, or I needed to do this, or one thought leads to another thought, which leads to another thought, which is like, oh, I get it. And sometimes that can solve some serious problems if you're thinking about something for school or something for work. And sometimes it's like putting it, they say, well, sleep on it. So by sleeping on it, or, just by letting things come and go out of your brain as they do, sometimes answers to some questions will appear. So other things, other altered states of consciousness can be caused by drugs, can be caused by fatigue, if you're just extremely tired, illness, trauma, sleep deprivation. You can also, another altered state can be either meditation or hypnosis. Mental disorders can also cause altered states of consciousness, especially if you're in a schizophrenic state and you're in a manic state, and it's just you're not as aware as you normally would be if you weren't in this state of disarray. Some things that can affect your states of consciousness are your biological clocks. Right now is a great opportunity, or a great example of our biological clock being off just a little bit. The time change was just 2 weeks ago. I'm still having trouble because I'm looking out. I mean, like, it's 6:30, it's supposed to be dark, but it's still pretty much daylight outside, right? So my clock is off. I'm wanting to stay up later because I'm not tired yet, or I'm wanting to get up later because I'm still tired. So that desynchronization of your biological clock will really mess with things. So some things other than the time change that can cause your clock to mess up would be jet lag. Another thing with shift work. If you work other than like a typical 9-to-5 job. So if you've got a job that maybe 3 in the afternoon to 11 at night, or if you've got the graveyard shift or whatever, all of that's just going to kind of mess with your internal clock. Insomnia is a really bad one. Now, there are different types of insomnia. You've got the insomnia where you can fall asleep fairly easily, but you wake up. Then there's the insomnia where it takes you forever to fall asleep. And then it's you can fall asleep easily, but you also wake up. You just don't get a lot of sleep. Now, why that insomnia is there's a multitude of reasons. It could be biological, could be psychological, could be physiological. If it's something that is really interfering with your day-to-day routine, that is definitely something that you need to get looked at by a doctor, because there are long-term health effects for those of us that don't get enough sleep. So some things that'll help us to reset our clock: bright light. If you take airline flights and they're rather long, especially if they're overnight flights, what will happen is after a certain period of time, the airline will actually, or the airplane, whomever, will actually turn the lights down or turn the lights off. Not really off, but they'll turn them down significantly. Because what it is, it's kind of tricking your brain into thinking, okay, let's get some rest. And then when it's time to kind of wake up or to get going, then they'll turn those lights on. Sadly, the best way I have found that you get that clock resynchronized is, even if we can't go to bed early or on time, having to get up early. If we usually get up at 6:30 or whatever, then even if I don't want to, I still have to get up. And that's where some of us will start to rely on caffeine, because that caffeine is going to help jumpstart our clock and getting our brains and bodies going. Another thing is to help us sleep, or to help us reset that clock, would be melatonin. Now, normally we create melatonin on our own. It's a natural sleep inducer. It's something that we create biologically on our own. But sometimes, if we're having trouble sleeping, sometimes melatonin is one of the better sleep aids, because it is natural. The body, it's not like the PM medications, like Tylenol PM, Advil PM, or whichever, because those use more of a sedative type medication, rather than melatonin is just more of a natural state, and it's more of an easy, it's an easier way for the body to fall asleep. You can get it over the counter. Just melatonin by itself. There's a drug out there called Alzaril, which is a combination of melatonin and some other naturally occurring chemicals that will help kind of ease the body into sleep. But there's a melatonin gummy, that it's got lemongrass in it. They have chamomile in it, and then it's got the melatonin in it, because what happens is all those kind of slow the body down, so it kind of turns the body off systematically, or a little at a time, sort of. And it just kind of lowers that blood pressure little by little, so that you're falling asleep not just automatically, but systematically. The body is kind of turning itself off, so that you actually get hopefully some really good sleep. With the melatonin, if you take the right dosage, you can really get a good 8 hours sleep and not feel that groggy, cranky, sometimes that with sleep medications will cause. Now, like I said, sleep deprivation, chronic sleep deprivation, or long-term sleep deprivation, can result in some seriously concerning issues. The thalamus and the prefrontal cortex will start to have decreased activity. So your prefrontal cortex, that's where all your emotions and your sense of right and wrong are. So if this is turning off, then when we're tired, kind of like we're inhibited by alcohol or drugs, it's that prefrontal cortex causes to turn off that moral compass. So we do things we wouldn't normally do. We say things we wouldn't normally say. We behave in ways we wouldn't normally behave because that prefrontal cortex is not doing what it normally does. It can also cause an inability to sustain attention because if you're so tired, you're going to be nodding off and you just can't, you spend so much of your energy trying to stay awake. You're just not paying attention to what's going on. And again, poor decision making, poor problem solving. You do not want to make any really serious decisions while you are sleep deprived. So, Americans are, as a whole, sleep deprived. So, think about why is that? We're busy all the time. We have almost what I call like an instantaneous world. I want something so I can get it now. If I want to order something, I can go to Amazon. We're lucky here in Jacksonville. We can, Amazon, I can get stuff delivered in within a matter of hours. If I want to read a book, I no longer have to go to the library or go to the bookstore. I can get on Amazon and I can download it in 2 seconds. So we live in an immediate society, that instant gratification. So our bodies and our minds are going constantly. So we have a lot to do. We stay busy. We keep ourselves busy. And it's a constant need and drive to do more. So think about that. If you feel like you're sleep deprived, try to figure out what's going on and what are some ways that you think would be able to relieve those issues personally. Anyway, some sleep disorders that can cause altered states of consciousness. Insomnia, we've already really talked about. The inability to sleep or to stay asleep. Sleepwalking, talking, or eating. Yes, it does happen. Several years ago, there was a case where a lady tried to, or maybe it was a man, or maybe it was both, tried to, when their spouse was killed, they said, oh, well, I did it in my sleep. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But I do know that sleepwalking, sleep talking, and yes, even sleep eating is an issue. And what happens is when we do these things, they're interrupting that sleep pattern. And so we don't get that full cycle of sleep. So when that cycle is disrupted through walking, talking, eating, or whatever, then that cycle doesn't complete. And it's like the body has to spend more energy, or the brain has to spend more energy trying to get that cycle going again so that you can reach that level of unconsciousness and that level of sleep, so that your body then has time to, or your brain then has time to kind of rejuvenate and kind of reacclimate itself. Nightmares or night terrors, they're just really, really bad dreams. Some of them can be reoccurring. Children have them. Usually the night terrors from children differ slightly from the nightmares of adults. Night terrors are kind of frightening, kind of scary, but the nightmares are a lot more intense and sometimes tend to stay with us a little longer. But your book will actually go into a lot more detail in the difference between nightmares and the night terrors. On the flip side of insomnia is narcolepsy. And the narcolepsy isn't just about being tired and falling asleep. It's also a neurological issue. For whatever reason, the brain just absolutely turns off, sometimes just spontaneously. It's really kind of cute, but it's really kind of sad. On YouTube, there is a dog with narcolepsy, and basically whatever happens when the dog gets super duper excited, he gets narcoleptic and he just falls asleep and falls over. So even things like eating gets him overexcited, which causes him to pass out. Playing with, his human gets him excited, therefore he falls over and goes to sleep. So it's not necessarily that you're just tired all the time and so you go to sleep, but you're tired because your brain is continuously cutting off in the middle of certain activities. And if you've got narcolepsy, you probably will not be able to drive, because what if you have a narcoleptic episode while you're driving, and then you're going to wind up getting into a car accident, hurting yourself or somebody else. Sleep apnea is another thing. Sleep apnea is just when you stop breathing in your sleep. You can go to we actually have a sleep clinic here at Baptist, and if you think you've got sleep apnea, some signs and symptoms of that are you stop breathing in the middle of the night, or when you're taking a nap, or just really loud snoring. My husband has it really bad, and he has a CPAP machine which covers the nose and the mouth. The APAP machine just covers the nose. And depending on what type of sleep apnea you have, if you have it, then the type of sleep apnea you have will determine what type of machine you need. But when my husband was having his apneic episodes, what the doctors found was that his brain was actually telling him to stop breathing. In an hour, in excess of 30 to 35 times an hour. And so his brain was telling him to stop breathing, but what was happening to him physically was it was like he would exhale and then he would try to inhale, but no air was coming in. And so, but his chest would continue to go up and down as if he was breathing, but no air was coming in or out. So what would happen is when whatever would change and he would take in that big breath of air, that was the snoring. So that rush of air coming through. So that's why snoring is a good telltale sign of whether or not a person has sleep apnea. Now, something outside of the norm, or something outside of your normal biology that has the ability to affect your state of consciousness, is any type of drug. Psychoactive drugs will act on the nervous system it alters consciousness. It can modify your perceptions. It can change your moods. This is why people take drugs, because it makes them feel good. Those rush of endorphins, that dopamine starts to flow, and so we try to forget, we try to cope. It makes us more productive, we think. So there are different kinds of drugs, and the reason we take those drugs is because it gives us what we're wanting, and whatever that want is. We find the right drug and the right dosage over the course, just like headache medicine. You realize that, for some of us, ibuprofen works. For others, Tylenol works. For others, it's Advil. So ibuprofen, acetaminophen, or naproxen sodium, it doesn't matter. But not everybody's headache or everybody's body ache responds to the same drug the same way, which is why some people are okay with taking one, other people have to take two. Right. So depending on your own independent body chemistry, will depend on what drugs do or what drugs cause what effect. So some depressants will slow down mental and physical activity. So some of those depressants are alcohol, barbiturates, because they can help induce sleep. They can, it's easy to take an accidental overdose, and the physical dependence is moderate to high, and the psychological dependence is moderate to high, because what happens is your body learns to incorporate these drugs into its everyday performance, and so without those drugs, the body doesn't work right, or the brain doesn't work right. Some other depressants, tranquilizers, okay? Again, sleep, and it's easy to overdose. Opiates are narcotics. Okay, so that's your Tylenol 3, your Percocet, your Darvocet. Most of it is used for pain relief, but it can cause drowsiness or nausea. And if the opiates or narcotics are introduced into the system via needle, then you've got higher risks of communicable type diseases. I guess communicable is probably not the right word, but you've got your higher incidence of AIDS, higher incidences of HIV, higher incidences of different. There's one out there that anyway I can't think of the name of it right now. Hep C, so hepatitis C, things like that that are can be transmitted via needles. Now, all those things kind of depress the nervous system. Now, stimulants, on the other hand, will increase the central nervous system activity. Some things like that are amphetamines. So amphetamines can be used for weight control, help with fatigue, but the counter some of the bad side effects are paranoia or convulsions, insomnia, and of course, with any of these, too much can result in death. Another stimulant is cocaine. Ecstasy is another one. Caffeine is another one. Okay, so we all then, and some of these are obviously a little more socially acceptable than others. Caffeine is more of a socially acceptable stimulant than anything else, right? Just like alcohol is a more socially acceptable depressant. But, too much of a good thing is still too much. Too much caffeine can cause insomnia. Too much alcohol can cause continued health problems. Another stimulant is nicotine. Okay, we use short term. Nicotine can reduce stress, but over a long term or a long term use can cause cancer, cardiovascular disease. It can also mess with your sleep, and of course the addiction level is very, very high for those. From here we go to hallucinogens. Now, hallucinogens are going to modify or change your perceptual experiences. Even though now we've got marijuana that will treat glaucoma, it can treat nausea, it can treat pain. It's one of those, from marijuana we get the CBD, which is now with certain stipulations legal. And that's used for cancer patients or glaucoma patients or other people that are in a constant state of high pain. In short-term use, it can cause hallucinations and time distortion. Things can slow down, things can speed up. But if it is doctor prescribed, then you need to be very, very diligent in how you take the medication, because too much of it can cause some serious issues. LSD is another hallucinogen. Okay, so when you're using illicit drugs, I'm not going to condone it. Okay, but I cannot control what you do on your terms. But understand that when you partake of drug, whether it's licit, illicit, over-the-counter, prescription, or whichever, too much of a good thing, again, is still too much. No matter how good it makes you feel, trust me, it's a short-term thing. It is not a long-term thing. All right, so if you have issues that require long-term treatment, then this is something that you really should sit down and talk with your doctor about, because these long-term health effects can actually be deadly. So please, please, please be careful with things that you ingest. From here, we can go right into hypnosis. Hypnosis is used for a variety of things. Hypnosis can be used to treat different health issues. Some people use hypnosis to stop eating, or to stop overeating, excuse me. Some people use it to treat nicotine addiction, alcoholism. Some people can use it to help with PTSD. Some people will debate whether or not it's actually effective. But for those that have used it and those that benefit from it, there's nothing wrong with it. You can do, even a state of self-hypnosis. You can go on to your Alexa app and you can tell her that you want to listen to a hypnosis channel, and she will tell you, Alexa, play hypnosis music.
Hypnosis/relaxation meditation by Roberta Shapiro on Amazon Music. By the way, when you hear a song you like, just say, I like this song, and I'll remember it.
Alexa, stop. So there you go. You can tell your automated device that you want to hear some hypnosis music, and she will play it for you. Hypnosis can also reduce pain. Another form of hypnosis is meditation. It's just a peace of mind. It's a state, a very peaceful state of mind where you're not occupied by worry. You're not occupied by depression or stress or pain. It's, a way to kind of help control that stress level. And in the end, in a state of consciousness, really what we're all trying to do anyway, most of the time we're trying to control that stress level. The world is out of control, my family's out of control, my life is out of control. No matter what I do, I turn around, it's always the other shoe dropping, and what can I do? And so most of these things that are in this chapter are there because we're trying to escape something. So not to say that, there's always going to be something there that we need to detach from. That's why, games on, your phone are so are there, Candy Crush, which is my go-to. If I need to just phase out, I go there because I don't have to think, or I color. I don't have to think. Or something stupid on television. My daughter will go into, start watching cartoons. That's her go-to. So there's just a lot of different things out there that can help. And again, the end result is all about trying to find that equilibrium of stress and life, and finding what works, what helps to manage my stress, but not to a point to where I'm totally incapacitated. All right. So that does it for Chapter 5. Again, everything is already posted on Canvas. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're following these videos as I'm posting them, I'll wait and post. I'm gonna give you guys a couple days, and then I'll start posting chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9 a little later on, just to kind of give you guys time to catch up with everything. Again, if you need me, email me. I'll answer you as quickly as I can. In the meantime, stay well, stay safe, stay healthy. If you need anything, email me. If not, you guys have a great one, and I will see you later. Okie dokie. Bye.